Welcome to the Emotional Support Podcast. We're your hosts, Amanda and
Joel.
and we're just here to offer you encouragement because sometimes you just need to, stop, drop, and waddle it on out to reset your week,
Reset the week. Emotional Support Penguins Podcast.
Let's do it.
Wow. Episode 6. Here we go.
Yeah.
We're rocking and rolling these. They've been a lot of fun. Thank you all once again for suggestions, for people that have been enjoying, commenting, liking, etc. Wanted to just have a little levity in your week, a little something that we can kind of talk and just enjoy each other's company even more, and then share that with you all.
Yeah.
So it's been fun. We love, like we talked about last week in self-care, we have little coffee dates a couple times a week. When we drop off our son and then go have a little coffee date and we talk a little bit about the podcast and what we're going to do.
Believe it or not, we actually have like a list of episodes now.
We're
getting
have
into
a
nice group
queue of ones here. So we even had to like go back and forth on a couple of them. Like, oh, we want to do this one. Oh no, we want to do this one.
Yeah.
And this one tied really well into last week's as a precursor to how to help deal with this one.
Right.
So would you like to introduce what we're talking about this week?
Sure. It's an easy one. It's something that we all go through. It's something we all feel at some point in our life. And that is loneliness.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure that it's been brought up to us as well. I think that might be how it landed on the list. And I think maybe we had brainstormed it as well. But I feel like this is one that can touch everyone because we all feel it.
Yeah. And sheesh, there's so many levels to loneliness. Like sometimes you can just feel, kind of out of place or lonely. And then other times, it can feel deeply isolating, deeply like to your core, feel like no one's around you, even if there's a ton of people. It can be so overwhelming.
And then you can just physically actually be lonely. You haven't touched base with someone in person in a while, and you're feeling like you haven't had that face-to-face contact.
Yeah, there's the famous quote that says, "No man is an island," meaning, like you're never truly alone, but that doesn't make you feel any different when you're in that situation.
Absolutely.
I remember specifically like a time in my life where I was with like hundreds of people a week, and I still felt like no one understood what I was going through, and I felt completely alone. Even, people would check in with me or like see how I'm doing, and I still felt like, they wouldn't notice me in a room. You know what I mean? Well, what does loneliness mean, and what does that maybe look like?
So I think it's easy to start with kind of the misconceptions on loneliness. Okay. So people think maybe that if you're physically alone, you're lonely, and those are the only people that can have the right to feel alone. Right. If you're physically alone and not around people, then that's the only time you can feel alone. The true meaning behind it is a missing a like real deep true connection with someone. Yeah. And that lack of connection is what makes you feel lonely. So it can be in person, like physically here, or it can be, and you can be in a crowded room of people and feel that. Yeah.
And then the opposite, then you could be when that I lost my train of thought.
It happens.
Yeah. We'll edit things out here. Or just leave it in because this is just a conversation with us. So, it could be either whether you're in a crowded room and feel isolated or by yourself and feel isolated. And I think that it doesn't matter which one you're on the spectrum of, because that is true to you. Like you can't point to someone and say like, why are you lonely? You work a job where you're with people all the time, and sometimes that's even worse. You're it's really hard. I said this last week during the self-care one, that sometimes I would just walk through Target after I got some coffee just to be around people, even though like my job entailed being around people.
Right.
But it was just like I wanted that presence of people, but I didn't want to necessarily interact totally. And it was just a way to touch up against other people.
It comes back to connections, right? So if you are in a space in a totally crowded room with people you're interacting with and talking to, a lot of the time it's surface, right? Like, how's the weather? How's it going? And you're not going to really be like, I'm really struggling this week with someone that you don't know. So then you still keep these things to yourself. You're not feeling understood. You're not feeling maybe even valued in the conversation.
Yeah.
And so even though you're talking with someone, it doesn't.
There's two types of people. There's people that could, obviously there's more, but like that could talk about anything and that are just kind of like, oh yeah, weather's great. Oh, sports. Yeah, whatever. And just go along. And I'm fine with that. I can do that. And I love deep conversations, but that like takes the life out of Amanda. Like she's like, stop talking about the weather. Like, how are you doing? Like, what is happening? Like, that just feels like anxiety ridden to her. And so I don't know about you. You might have been stuck in a conversation before, and you just feel like you don't know what to do. When I worked in high school and college as a cashier at a Food Lion, and they would have all spectrum of this, because sometimes people would be like, oh, how are you doing? Are you doing any sports? This. Another time people would be like, my dad died this week. And I'd be like, I'm so sorry, as I'm like bagging the bananas. Yeah. So like, you might be somewhere in that where like, those, you don't feel like you have those deep conversations. So you feel like you need to talk to someone at Food Line.
Right.
And just because I smiled and like genuinely asked, how's your day?
Absolutely.
You might have a chance to like really connect with someone and be that. So you never know, another quote is like, you never know the inside battles that people are fighting. Like somebody could be around, like I said, 100 people and feel completely isolated. What are like ways to cope with that? Like, how do you deal with some of the feelings of loneliness? So,
I mean, the thing that's missing is like a true interaction.
Yeah.
And so I know it's easier said than done, but building those meaningful connections with other people. So whether that's joining some type of club with someone that has a similar interest as you, when you connect with something that you both find interesting, it makes you feel a little bit the same, and you're more likely to open up to them than to someone that you feel is completely different than you. So like those, volunteering at something like that.
Yeah, volunteering is huge. Going to a food kitchen and handing out some food, going to walking
Humane
and
Society.
Dogs in a Humane Society. That's one of the things I did when I was feeling lonely.
Yeah.
And you'd be surprised how many pupper kisses and like just interacting with like the nice staff and people that like felt like I'm a part of something. Like being a part of something bigger than yourself then has that inclusion. And it can be simple as like literally 1 hour a week where you go walk a dog, or 1 hour a week where you go hand out food or go clean something. Like those are so simple, but you're getting this huge sense of accomplishment as well as being a part of something bigger than yourself.
Yeah. And then there's always reaching out to family, I know some people have difficult relationships with some of their family, but almost always there's one person in your family that you do trust and that you do connect with. And I know personally, I sometimes have a hard time reaching out to these people if they're busy or, they have kids and they have to do this, or they're doing so many things. And so you don't want to bother them. You don't want to stress them out with all of their busy day. I'm here as a family member to say, reach out. Like, it's okay. Nobody's too busy.
Yeah, because part of the thing with loneliness is like, and we're about to get into this, but like a not feeling good enough or not feeling like you're worth it. And so then you're like, well, I don't want to bother them.
Absolutely.
Like I'm too much for them right now. And we're here to say you are worth it. Like we've done this before, but you are worth it.
You are worth it.
You need to reach out. Like you are not, you're not too much for somebody. Like, and if it is for that person at that time, like they can help you find resources. They can help you find another person to reach out to. I want to give a shout out to like our Discord and Quit the Build's Discord. And we'll put links to both the Kung Fu Penguin and Friends Discord as well as the Discord for Quit the Build. Quit the Build just added a special bot in one of their channels that you can add and talk about mental health resources and get some encouragement, things like that. But finding like a group and community of people that like, I'm having a hard day this week, and then just having maybe someone DM you or message you and say like, oh, I'm so sorry. Like, how did your appointment go?
Right.
How did that doctor's appointment go? And just checking in, like that sense of connection. That's like another 1,000+ people that are rooting for you, that are like a a part of that.
And it feeds our, like, you know, our social media generation, right? Yeah. So you put this thing up like, hey guys, you know, I had this really difficult thing happen yesterday. You know, it's been pretty rough and I'm feeling like I'm alone in this. And even just a couple people like, you know, we're here for you. You've got this. Like, oh my goodness, that is awful. Like, it makes you feel better, just even if it's a very surface, like touch base. Yeah. It still makes you feel like, oh, okay, I'm not alone in this. Other people understand as well.
Yeah. And that's like, for you to remember, like, how to help a friend, like, those extra touch points are really important. And it's outside of just like that one first post. Like, do a follow-up. Yeah. We talked about this in the postpartum, like a little follow-up, like, how's mom doing? You know, like, it's so easy to be like, how's the baby doing? But it's like, how's mom doing? Right. Just checking in, like, after the dust kind of settled, you know, things like that. Like, after a big surgery, after a mental health thing, like, you know, the first 2 weeks, family and friends might be around there. But, like, what about the third week or the fourth week or months later? Like, just checking in and having that. So, other things we just talked about last week, self-care. Self-compassion is huge. Like, being able to look at yourself and saying that you do have value, that you are worth it, that you are loved, and that, like, it's okay to not be okay, and to move forward with that, to find help.
Yeah, and like our self-care episodes, all of those things that you're finding that you love to do, even just doing something that makes you happy can help kind of combat the feelings of loneliness. So even if it's not something that directly you're like, okay, I'm not alone, but it's something that is just giving you a little bit of a dopamine boost, giving you a little bit of a more positive outlook, can help kind of back that up a little bit for you as well.
Sometimes the most empathetic people have the least empathy for themselves.
Absolutely.
I'm saying that about myself too, because, you know, I feel all the hurts and struggles of other people. And then I'm like, you're stupid, Joel. Like, why can't you figure this out? And I'm like, no, like, we have to be self-compassionate. We have to be self-loving, to be able to put ourselves first in some of these situations, to work on this, to combat those things. Because, you know, I've been in situations far too many times where, like, I thought someone, you know, either loved me or cared for me, and then it just, like, it wasn't the same as what I thought, and it just spiral of self-loathing and loneliness and doubt, and then you are just going weeks, months, years where you're just spiraling out of this deep place. And, like, that's where we say, like, find professional support.
Right. Yeah, that's the next one. Definitely find. There are so many resources out there, and I know how daunting it can seem to like reach out to counseling or reach out to a therapist. But the thing is, what happens in those sessions is, yes, you can listen to a million mental health podcasts or do journaling or read or whatever it is. But when you sit down with a professional, they're going to give you a personalized plan. Like, this isn't a plan that's going for just anyone. This is what is altered and made just for you and just for what they think you can. And if it doesn't work for you, guess what? Next week we can, you know, do something different. And
you can bounce off them. They're there to be a soundboard. They're there to be someone that listens, and they're genuinely taking notes. Sometimes it's, you know, like a little intimidating because they're like
writing a lot.
Like, does that what?
Right.
Did you just diagnose me with something? Or but most of the time they're just like, oh, really? Yeah. Compassionate, caring. And, like, they're just writing down attributes of you and like ways that they can maybe help tailor some of those mechanisms to help you and things like that. And so there's BetterHelp, and we can link that down below, which is an online one that you can start with. And then you can look up in your local area, and there's so many resources to find a therapist in your local area. We can post a link for those types of things too. But maybe you need a family member just to help you call and get there. Because sometimes I know, like, especially our generation now, we don't like to talk on the phone. And there are online ways that you can sign up for them, but a lot of times, for some reason, therapists, you still need to call to make an appointment.
My mom just posted something. Shout out to Mama. And it said, you know, remember the days when we made ring back like songs on our phones, and it said, and now if this little rectangle made any noise, I would smash it to pieces. Like, how dare it ring?
Well, and then I think one of the key things to loneliness is
vulnerability.
Yeah. And we have to develop those meaningful connections. And unfortunately, that means we can't have those brick walls up.
Right. Yeah. It's very, very dependent on being vulnerable.
Yeah.
So being genuine and authentic and giving them the real version of you. Because if you don't do that, then you're staying surface again. You're not going to make that true connection.
Yeah.
They're going to be talking to you and the front of you that you're putting up, but you're still going to be feeling lonely because in the background, it's not, it's not actually.
It's like if you have a steel barricade around you and
Right.
you're like, man, why has no one visited me? Like, I can't believe this is so frustrating. And it's exactly like if you are having those walls of emotion and coping mechanisms that aren't healthy.
Yeah.
They could be any measure of things, but that are really isolating your friends and family, then that is going to cause you to not have those connections. And, it can really be hurtful. And one of the things, especially for men, it can feel like a sign of weakness. It can feel like, no, I don't want to talk about my feelings. Like
being vulnerable is tough.
Yeah.
It's hard. It is.
Yeah. And that's why some people are scared of therapy in general, because you're gonna have to actually talk about your true feelings or what you're actually dealing with.
Yeah.
And like think of it just as like a conversation of like a long lost friend that like cares about you and wants to see the best for you. Because that's generally like therapists aren't getting into the job for money. Like, and not anyone that I've ever talked to about anyway.
Yeah.
Like they're not like, let me go through all these years of training and education just to have people emotionally unload on me and have to deal with all of their problems.
And then I'm going to judge them and,
No, like they're going into this because they genuinely either it helped them, they saw the effects of it, or they know that they have a way that they can help other people. And so that's one of the reasons why we wanted to do this podcast is like we've seen the effects and the positivity of therapy and how it's helped our lives. And we've seen how about talking about mental health and the ways that it's been stigmatized then can help change lives. That, like if we have just one person that is like, Joel and Amanda, I went to therapy and it changed my life. Then like this podcast is worth it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Or just someone that they're during their week were like, wow, like I was struggling and that was something that helped me. And then we did it. Like that's the whole point of this thing. And so with loneliness, we are here to send love your way, to say that you're not alone, that you're worth it. Like you're worth reaching out to get that help. And you're not alone when you're feeling lonely.
Right. Yeah. That's one of the things. I saw the quote in a movie once, and I think it might have been P.S. I Love You. Quintessential chick flick. I love it. I love that movie.
She does.
But one of the things she said was, if you're feeling alone, then you and I was also feeling alone. Well, then I guess we were all together in that.
Yeah.
And so, there is never a moment in time where you're feeling lonely and there's not someone else out there feeling lonely as well.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So if even that piece right there can make you feel just a little more connected and a little more willing to be like, okay, how can I, pull myself up here?
And sometimes you just need to be a friend that's just be with someone. Because sometimes you don't want to talk quite yet and you're feeling lonely, but you don't want to just be by yourself.
Right.
And so maybe it's okay to just bring them coffee or bring them some ice cream, maybe whatever their love language of food is. And then just sit with them and, just be there. Just having proximity with someone.
I had a friend that whenever one of us was really, really stressed out and we would just start, like as soon as we saw each other, we were really, really close. So as soon as we saw each other, if something was wrong, it was like immediately talking a mile a minute. Okay. And just offloading everything that was bothering. And then the thing that we learned to say to each other was, do you want solutions?
Yeah.
Or do you want somebody to listen?
Yeah.
Because sometimes people just need someone to just get it all out.
Yeah.
They're not looking for solutions. They already know what their solutions are. They already know what they want to do.
Yeah.
They just need to say these things out loud before they're able to take that next step forward.
Yeah, and we won't get deep into the psychology, but men tend to use the front of their brain that goes for solutions and how to fix things immediately. And these are all generalizations, and women typically go for like the further part of the brain that is like emotional to try to like put things into place. Like they want to be heard and they want to be seen, and men want to figure out how to fix things. And like I said, that's very generalized. And it can be, you know, anybody on the different sides of things, but that's something that, you know, you have to learn as a person, like how to deal with that, because you might be the person that just wants to ride in there with a cape and you know, and say, Super Joel, we're gonna fix this. You know, Amanda, I see that you're sad. We will immediately deal with this. Right. And sometimes she's like, just sit with me. Yeah. You know, can you just sit with me? Let's just watch a show. Or
the
chill.
amount of times I'll be crying and he'll go, "Are you crying?" And I'm like, "Don't point it out." Like, just let me cry. Just let me sit here and cry for a second.
Yeah. I'm like, okay.
And he's like, "Wait, do I need to ask you why you're crying?" It's usually because of like a movie or a video or something. Yeah. But yeah, I'm definitely a like, let me sit with it for a moment person before I want to move into fixing things.
Yeah. But as isolating as it can feel, know that you're not alone, and know that, you know, there's been somebody that has dealt with something similar, maybe not exactly the same way, that might have just some camaraderie in that with you that could help you walk through it. And there's support and resources available to help you with those things. So like I said, we'll put some of those links and things down below that might be helpful for you. But I would say, you know, if you're dealing with loneliness right now, first step could just be reaching out to one friend or family member, or, you know, finding, if you think it's is strong enough, find that professional help, and feel free to reach out to us if you need that little extra push to find those resources, or to find, you know, maybe a therapist or something like that. Any other thoughts or things?
I think you covered it beautifully. Just, you are not alone. It feels lonely, but you're not alone.
Yeah. Well, you always get cold, warm hugs in the igloo. some flipper high fives. Yeah. So we're thankful that you're a part of the community and that you're here. It really does feel like a little igloo family.
A family.
And it's so fun when we stream or have videos and just have that part of connection, or in Discord when people post pictures of their silly cats or things like that. Yeah. It's just a fun connection point. So we encourage you to check those things out. But yeah, you are loved. You matter so much, and you have so much value. We appreciate you. Thank you for watching, and we'll check you all in the next Emotional Support Penguins podcast.
Woohoo!